Your Creative Push, episode 94.
We're individuals, right? So we can all have different voices.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Kalon Cheong. Kalon is a software engineer living in Washington. He paints and draws purely for fun in his spare time, and he believes that art should be enjoyable and should be more about the experience than the outcome, which I love, dude. I love that you have that opinion, because that's what the show is all about. So first of all, thanks, man, for coming on the show. And I was wondering if you could maybe, tell us a little bit about what your average day kind of looks like, and when do you find the time to draw?
Well, I have a full-time job, so I wake up, go to work, come back. Sometimes if I, decide to go to the gym, I'll do that. And then, cook some dinner. If I really have the motivation at that time, then I would draw. But it's tough. I mean, because you're so drained after work,
I absolutely know, man.
So yeah, that's a constant struggle. But I feel like, most of it is trying to find some motivation, like inspiration. You could look at other artists, connect with others.
Do you ever find that it's a little overwhelming? I find that when I go on Instagram, it's sometimes slightly overwhelming, especially there's so much talent out there. It's like, wow, why even try?
Yeah, that's really, I think that's a big hurdle that a lot of people face, because you see all these great artists, and you start to think, hey, I'll never be as good as these guys. Why do I even bother?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you don't need to be the best. It's you're doing it for fun, right? I mean, sure, you want to improve in your art and stuff, but at the same time, it's for fun. You just enjoy the process and stuff.
And that's what it's all about. Can you take us back to your first, or maybe one of your first creative moments in your life, and maybe tell us that story?
So I've always kind of drawn as a kid. I say back in elementary school, that's when I really picked up drawing. So I used to draw Dragon Ball Z stuff and Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and all that TV show stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to copy those Pokemon cards.
Yeah, I actually, believe it or not, had some. I think I had my most prized one was the Charizard thing.
Oh, they had the shiny one.
Yeah, it was a foil one or something.
Oh, man, dude, that was so cool. Yeah. So yeah, I used to collect those cards and try to copy the art on it. Because I just thought it was so cool. It's I could replicate that. It's yeah, I made that too. I would try to draw from imagination. So here's the thing, I didn't only copy, I would try to sketch it from imagination. And that was really overwhelming and scary because we as artists sometimes we need reference too.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that really fun because you're not bounded, sometimes you make mistakes and it's oh, you might put a horn there and it's oh, that looks pretty cool,
Yeah, sometimes it's by making a mistake, it's you learn. Not only do you learn from your mistakes, but sometimes it's a really awesome, happy accident too. It takes you in a direction that you didn't really expect to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you trace them, or you would put it next to it and draw it aside?
Yeah, so I would put it on the side, and I would just try to get the line art out. Just looking left and right, and it's does it match? Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't trace it, because those cards are valuable.
Oh,
you don't want to ruin them with lines. No, but it's such a really good way to learn is by just literally copying. You know what I mean? To just sit there and not trace, but just do it and get your hands and your body used to doing that and getting that practice. And even some writers, I gotta look this up because I forget I forget which writer it was, and I have referenced him like 3 times on the show. So I actually have to do my research and figure out who it is. But he would write entire novels on his typewriter. He would just copy them word for word to like get the feeling, the feeling of what it is to write like a master, And it's just like there's something to be said about just copying and imitating people and just building up that muscle memory so that you can draw from your imagination when the time comes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important to do that. Like you don't need to like I don't suggest people like copy it and say, yeah, this is mine.
Right, of course. Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
No, you get in trouble.
But I think that's a really great way to learn, definitely. Because like, you get to kind of like be the person that you aspire to, right? Like I really like the designs that they had, so I was like, I want to capture that skill. I want to get that skill, and I recommend that to people that just starting out.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even like I don't know how to put this, but it's like you start to understand why things are there. Like you understand why like the shading's there. I'm not an artist, so I can't really speak for this, but like it's like you instinctively get that. You get that instinct for why things are where they are, and it's just like it naturally comes the more and more you do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But yeah, I mean that was a big part of my starting out art. And then I started doing it in middle school too and high school. So our teachers, we basically did like acrylic painting and then your perspective stuff, and basic traditional stuff. But I didn't really like do my own stuff, I would say, in that phase. I was just kind of like, oh, these are just assignments and I'll just do it. So I feel like I lost my main creative spark throughout middle school and high school. So that kind of sucked.
And when'd you get it back?
So that died off after like going into college. So when I went to college, I was like, oh, I can't do art. It's, I gotta do something that makes the monies,
Absolutely.
And it's a big influence from my parents and stuff. So I just really focused on, computer science stuff. I came back after actually college. So after I finished college, I was like, hey, I remember I had this really old hobby of drawing. Why don't I just do it again for fun? And yeah, that was like the second rebirth almost for the thing.
The Phoenix rises. And then what was it like riding a bike? Was it you're like right back into it and it was fine, or was there like another learning curve? Was there growing pains involved, or were you just off to the races again?
Oh God, it was. I was terrible. I mean, I was doing the same thing I did. I went back to like being like in childhood, right? So I started copying other pictures again because I feel like you need a reference, especially when you start out. So I started doing that, and then I was back into the whole like drawing cartoony stuff, like so I like anime and manga, all that stuff. So I was looking up characters there and just drawing them, trying to capture like how the artist envisioned the character. So yeah, so it was kind of like riding a bicycle all over again.
And then when did you start like your Instagram account, and when did you start putting stuff up online and showing it?
So that actually started like, I remember that one drawing that I did, I actually put it there. So I probably removed it right now because it was too bad, but yeah.
What, your first one you mean?
Yeah, the very first like a drawing that I did. And so I posted that, and then I was like, hey, I clicked I pressed the drawing hashtag.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I pressed that, and then I noticed that there's so many other people posting. I was like, whoa, this is a thing? What? Like, people share art? Like, because I was away from the artwork for so long.
You thought you were the first one?
Yeah, I was like, hey, people do this stuff? Like, what?
Yeah, that's so cool.
And then, like, I was like, hey, I should do this more often, this, and it was really fun too, just doing the art.
And have you made some like pretty cool connections by doing that?
Yeah, you meet people on social media, you meet friends and stuff. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. For anybody who hasn't checked out your account, I definitely suggest Instagram.com/Dusphite, Dusphite. I think, I don't know how we connected. I don't know if you liked one of my quotes or I just found you, it's funny with Instagram. You never kind of know how you end up somewhere. You suddenly find yourself like awestruck looking at somebody's account and you're just like, wait, how did I get here?
It's probably like one of those like related posts, like sometimes they have like, you know what I mean, right? Like the
What's
linked
that?
posts, like you'll
Right,
get a
right.
picture and they're like, hey, check this out too or something.
Right.
I don't know.
And you just start going down the tunnel. And anyway, I ended up on your page and it was your picture of Tinkerbell. I think that really was like, just made me like reach out to you. I was like, wow, this guy is like, has a pretty cool vibe. And I don't know. I forget what your profile said, something pretty badass too. And I was just like, all right, let me reach out to this guy. But, can you talk a little bit about your technique? Like, what do you enjoy doing the most? Like those sketches that I see you do, where you write on the side, just draw, which I love, or like like the stuff with Tinkerbell. What's like your technique?
So I kind of do traditional sketching, so like with pen and brush, and also I do digital painting. So I do like I use Corel Painter and Photoshop. It depends really on my mood. Like if I want to do something really quick, I'm just like I don't have a lot of time or something. Like all I want to do is just draw, like maybe 20 minutes or less. I'll pull out my sketchbook and then just draw random stuff, whatever that comes to my mind. I don't think I really have a technique. Like when it comes to digital painting, I kind of just slab on paint until it looks right. Well, I guess there's kind of a concept where like you have to still understand some fundamentals of art. Like with painting, like you have soft edges and hard edges, so that's something really important to remember. And then you have in drawing, you have to remember that there's perspective and stuff. Well, it depends on again like your style. So for me, it's like I try to keep a somewhat realistic, but not like fully realistic style. Yeah.
It's like you almost smudge or like blur the lines of what's real and what's cartoon, which is really, really cool and inspiring.
Yeah, yeah.
Aside from, having a full-time job, which I can completely understand, are there any other things that maybe hold you back from, creating your art or sharing it on a daily basis?
Oh, yeah. Well, thing is with art is there's a lot of like little hurdles that we kind of have to face, right? There's always these little like random kind of creative blocks that we get.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, I think one for me, which probably applies to many people, is like you want a really nice picture at the end, right? And you get this idea like, oh, I have to get this beautiful, pretty picture, and then I could share it with the world. Or maybe if you're a musician, you're like, oh, I want to get a great music piece, and I want to people to like it and stuff, right? So, so this is kind of a scary thing, as any artist, may face, right? I think that's one of the biggest hurdles.
And then how do you get past that? Like, so what you're saying is that the idea of the end product is intimidating?
Yep.
So how do you get past that?
Well, I think that you have to really focus on just creating, like don't worry about, oh, this has to look good,
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep a like secret sketchbook thing. I would draw on it. I would say, hey, I'm not going to share anything in this sketchbook. This is only for me. Or go into a drawing session saying, none of this is ever gonna be shared. This is only for me, and I'm just gonna do whatever I want. And that's it. And if you go into a creative process with that attitude, I think could kind of get out of that block.
Dude, absolutely. That's such a good idea. Just like, yeah, tricking your brain almost. Like it's like locking the door and, not letting anybody in, and then like maybe even putting a padlock on the sketchbook itself or something. But yeah, I like that. It takes the pressure off for sure. And I think that's one of the hardest things I know for writing. it's like one of the hardest things is anticipating your audience, is like thinking about the person that's reading it. And I always think, I'm like, the person that I think in my mind reading it is my mother. I'm like, oh man, I can't let my mom read this. You know what I mean? So you got to like completely forget about that and just assume that it's like a carbon copy of you reading it later, I guess. But I really like that idea of a secret sketchbook, man. That's such a powerful tool.
Yeah, and sometimes I think we might be tackling something too complex. I think that's the other type of hurdle. So, like, let's say you're just starting out art, right? And you're like, hey, I want to make a portrait or something. But then, like, you go in and you're saying, oh, I need to, like, I need to, like, know the skull anatomy. Oh, I need to know the facial muscles and stuff. And I need to do proportion. Instead of, like, thinking of so much, like, complex things, just, like, focus on one thing. Like, oh, I'm just going to draw a skull, you know? That's it. And I'm just going to do that for now, right? It's like going back to simple stuff. Or you could even be like, oh, I'm just going to draw boxes today, you know? Like, that's so simple, right? And you're not going to start thinking, oh, I got to make that pretty, whatever. It's like, hey, I'm just going to draw boxes today. Whatever. That's it, you know?
Yeah, I think you could put the comma whatever after everything that you're going to try to accomplish that day. I'm going to write a chapter of my book, whatever. Or I'm going to take photos of this person, whatever. I'm going to write the next great American symphony, whatever. No, I like that. That's a powerful idea because, again, it takes the pressure off a little bit. And you're right. Like, you don't have to know the anatomy of like the skull to create a skull. You can just draw a skull, and it might even be a more artistic and profound thing if it doesn't quite, like completely follow the anatomy of the human skull. If you put your own kind of tweaks on what you think a skull will look like,
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's what I think is really important for artists is to like, yeah, there's reality and stuff, like you should know, I think like you should twist that. Like you shouldn't always just say, oh, I have to make stuff realistic. It's like we're individuals, right? So we can all have different voices. So like one guy might be like, oh, I'm going to make the eye socket bigger, and it's like, yeah, do that because you have the power to,
Absolutely. And if everybody just puts everything out exactly like it is, exactly the way, the person sees it, you shouldn't do that. You should put it out the way like your crazy mind's eye sees it, That's like your job as an artist.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Have you had like a hardest time in your life with speaking specifically of creativity, like where resistance and the things that hold you back, like really held you back?
So I had a time where I wasn't like drawing at all for maybe like a month or two. Mm-hmm. And it was really because I got overwhelmed by consuming too much art, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. Like I was just, discouraged in a sense, like, oh, I'm not gonna make it, Like I saw so much awesome paintings online and it's like, oh crap, these guys are too good, you know? And then it's like, why I even bother? And then like I would take my sketchbook and then I would like put it next to theirs. And like at that time I was just like, oh my God, this is terrible. Why am I even doing this? Like it was bad.
Oh man, that's the recipe for disaster. Like one thing to compare it in your brain, but then to hold it up next to it. What are you doing, man?
Yeah, it was terrible.
No, I hear you.
And I mean, because I read somewhere, I was like, hey, like you have to compare in a sense to get a sense of standard. But like it was destroying me, Like sure, like if you want to get good, you could do that. But like, man, that kills you, Oh. God.
I think you're definitely not alone in doing that, and I think everybody compares themselves to their either favorite or their least favorite, or they try to like almost rank themselves. And the thing about art, it's like it's not a ranking system, but I think people try to, because that's like what humans do. I think is try to place themselves in the hierarchy of art. Artists, a hierarchy of whatever it is that they're doing. But with art, I don't think it's quite like that, because everybody has such different styles, and it's cool to like, take from one person's style or another person's style and kind of create this buffet of, the art that is you. But how do you get past that? Like, how did you stop comparing? Did you have to turn the internet off or something?
I think it was like, a mix of, I'd say two things. I think the first thing was, yeah, just getting away from that for a bit. You know, just kind of like taking an art fast, like just a fast away
Nice.
from from art. Like, yeah, like even creating. You know, like sometimes you need a break, right? Like you can't go boom, boom, boom. Right? You gotta
Sure.
calm down, relax a bit. You know, take a step back. You know, it's okay. And the other thing is to realize that these guys have been doing it for a very long time. You know, yeah, at the end of the day, they're like we tend to idolize people, especially
Hmm.
really good artists. We like think like, oh, these guys are like super good. They're like, you know, like almost gods or something. But you have to realize that, I mean, they've been doing it for a decade, you know, they've been doing it for a very long time. And they practice like every day or something. So it kind of makes sense that they're like really that good. And if you put in the work for that, you'll get there too. You know, it's not like a magic pill thing. You know.
Yeah, for sure. It's a bunch of like little magic pills every single day, and and it's not like really not that much magic. It's just like the act of doing it. You're completely right. That's all it is. You're comparing yourself to somebody who is like way down the timeline of putting in work. Like that's really all it is, you know. And they've gotten closer and closer to their kind of perfect style. And it's your objective to not follow their path, but like kind of create your own, you know.
Oh, absolutely agree. You can't just follow like this really, you know, experienced artist. You have to like find your own path. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
On the flip side, do you have like a best or like most triumphant creative moment?
Yeah. Well, there was a time, I don't know if it still applies now, but I was drawing a lot. Like I would probably come back from work and I would just like sit down and go at it for hours. Uh,
Hmm.
probably like make the quickest dinner, just like okay, it's time, you know. And yeah, that was crazy. I was just in the zone, you know. I was just filling in sketchbooks, and I just didn't really care about what I did. Was it good? Like, was it bad? I didn't care. And I was just in the zone, you know, like play some music and you know, just doing stuff, you know, just drawing and trying to read some art books and stuff, and did that for hours. Even if I was working full time, I mean, I was kind of machine at some point. That kind of died off now, but yeah, at some point I was like a machine. That was crazy.
I think it's important to kind of embrace that too. Like if when that happens to you, because I do think that creativity comes in waves. Like you were saying, like sometimes you need to take a break, but sometimes you almost have to take a break because you can't like it's just not there, you know, and like you're just putting out trash. But then when you can get that and like kind of ride that like wave as long as you can, I think it's really important to like to do it. Like, you know, take care of all your other life stuff, but like if you're feeling it and you're really, really enjoying it like you were, just do it as long as you can and just enjoy that because it is fleeting, you know, it won't last forever. So just embrace it while you can.
Yeah, it definitely comes in waves. I don't think like like art is one of those things you're like, hey, I have to do X minutes per day. Like it's gonna vary, you know. Some days you're gonna be super inspired and you're gonna go at it for hours, and then other days you're just like, I'm not feeling it, and that's okay. You know,
Hmm.
it's okay to embrace that. Yeah.
It's just important to try. I think it also comes in waves with like discouragement as well. Like some days, I think from a lot of the people that I've talked to now in almost 100 interviews, it's like everybody kind of says that like some days you're just like on top of the world. You're like, I just made the best thing that anybody has ever made or like that I will ever make. And then you like look at it the next day and you're like, what is this? You know what I mean? And sometimes the opposite way too, where you're like this is just all garbage, and then you look at it the next day and you're like, oh well, that's kind of cool though, and you can kind of like go from there. So it's important to not get too discouraged as well.
Yeah, I think that that's happened to me countless times where I would like
Yeah.
do a painting. I'm like, oh, this is so cool, and it's like next day or something. You're like, wait, what's happening?
Wait, is it upside down right now? What was it? Yeah. I
Yeah,
hear you.
and I think that's like there's a phenomenon. I think it's like part of it is because you became a good artist. Like
Hmm.
you got better. Like
Hmm.
there's like if you think of your eyes kind of like having a level, I guess. Like when you did that piece, you're maybe like level 7, and then like when you slept and you woke up, you're level 8. So then you look at that, you're like,
Right.
what? I leveled up. You know, think of it as a level up. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Like you get, I don't know if you play too many video games, but like you get the HP, like you just like leveled up and now you're like a more powerful
Yeah.
creature, artistic creature. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
You could, yeah, I think that's a cool like thing to apply.
And embrace that too. If you look back at your other, like your old stuff and you're just like almost embarrassed, like that's a really good thing. You know, like that means that you are evolving and you're on your own path, like we were talking about before, and you know, you're putting in your time. So
I think the other thing is we all start somewhere, you know, and the most important thing is that you keep going, right?
yeah, that's all you can do is just keep putting the steps forward instead of just stopping and sleeping.
Yeah.
What would you say that art and creativity brings to your life?
I would say the biggest thing is it gives me a voice in a sense. Like I could share something like my thought in a visual way, and I think that's the most appealing thing to me in art. And you know, with art, there's no one solution, and that's something that I had to kind of suck up when I studied computer science back in college. It's like, oh, you know, there's this one solution, or like mathematics, there's just one solution. And with art, it's like it doesn't really matter. Like there's no right solution, and I think that's really freaking cool. Yeah.
Yeah, again, it like takes the pressure off a little bit. You know, when you have this idea for your end project of an artistic project, whatever it may be, if you, during the process of creating it, kind of deviate from that path and end up with a different result, that's not like a failure, you know, it's just like a different kind of success.
Yeah, exactly.
I went to school for computer science too, so I can completely relate with what you're talking about.
Oh, God.
God bless us all. I didn't end up doing anything with it though. I'm a poker dealer now, so whatever. And do you have like a favorite book or YouTube channel or YouTube clip or anything else, music or anything else that you like kind of draw inspiration from and that maybe we could as well?
If you guys draw, you should check out Sycra Yasin's channel. So it'll be SYCRAYASIN. So he does like art tutorials, and sometimes he does like little like I don't know if they're podcasts, but they're like just videos. He just kind of rambles about like creative struggles and all that stuff. His artistic journey is pretty cool. There's also another person called Sinix Design. So SINIXDESIGN. So he does art tutorials too. He does streams. So yeah, you could check those out.
Very cool. And if you didn't get the spelling, we'll have them linked in our show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/Kalon, KALON. We are running out of time, man. So it is time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to reach to the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already inspired today that's thinking, you know, maybe I can do this too, or maybe I need to get back to work right when this podcast is over, and give them your best advice and push them into doing it.
Well, you just keep creating, you know, don't worry about the result. Just, you know, just keep creating stuff, you know, embrace your creativity and, just do it.
Just keep creating. I love it, man.
Yeah, man. It's that simple.
Kalon, dude, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show and for giving us that push.
Yep.
And you can find Kalon on his Instagram, which is Dusphite, and on Tumblr and DeviantArt, and pretty much everything else, right? You're Dusphite?
Yeah, Dusphite. Yep.
DUSPHITE. And again, all the resources will be on our show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/Kalon. Kalon, thanks again, man.
Thanks, man.
Big, huge, giant thank you to Kalon for coming on the show. As you can tell, I had a lot of fun with this interview. He's a really cool guy, and he had a lot of really cool things to say, especially this idea of the secret sketchbook. I love it. I'm really obsessed with it, and I think it can really help you out if you are afraid to share your work or to be really honest, genuine, authentic, but perhaps you're kind of shy and you're afraid of what people might think of you. Well, now you're off the hook. Now you don't have to worry about what people will think about you or your art, at what level it's at or what it's about, because you don't have to show it to anybody. Just put it in your secret sketchbook or your secret notepad or whatever it is that you do your art or your creative pursuits. You don't have to show it to anybody. We've talked about that before, but it is a powerful idea to maybe even write on the front of the sketchbook, secret sketchbook, do not open. I think mentally it will allow you to really take all of the pressure off, and that's kind of what it's all about. And whatever you do not hold up your artwork to compare it to some amazing artists, because it's never going to help you. And like we said in the show, there is no comparison, because you are unique and you're the only one that can create your art the way that you do. And one final note, the author that I could never think of, that's Hunter S. Thompson. He's written like The Great Gatsby and A Farewell to Arms. Well, he didn't write them, but he rewrote them word for word to get that, that feeling for what makes a great novel. But that is all I've got for you today and for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you're inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. I'm really looking forward to next week as we are approaching episode 100. I have a special guest lined up for that I'm really excited about. And some changes are coming after episode 100. Some that you might like or might not like. I don't know. We'll see. But I will have a special episode probably before episode 100 to kind of hit the reset button in a way. That is something for you to look forward to as well. But we will be here for you next week if you need the push again. Have a great, productive weekend. Get all those creative juices flowing. Keep it in your secret sketchbook or your secret notepad if you have to. And just get it done. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.